I want to show you some new video now that's been released from the IDF, and it gives a closer look at the tunnel system that runs through the Gaza Strip to transport weaponry and where the terrorist group is believed to be holding, and you heard the new number now, 239 hostages. I want to bring in my friend, Brett Velikovich, Fox News contributor, drone expert, former Army Special Operations soldier. So good to have you on Outnumbered today, Brett. First of all, talk to us about those tunnels and really what the living is like down there for the hostages, what it would be like if they're there.
Well, it's an extremely difficult scenario, Harris, and the Israelis are looking at sending some of their most elite forces into these tunnels, as they should. These are some of the most difficult fighting scenarios you can imagine, and the Israelis train relentlessly to go into these tunnels. They're like cities under there. The Hamas terrorist group, they smuggle men, money, and material through them. They move cars, they move weapons, they move other equipment. They have oxygen and gas pumped into them. It's cities underneath there, and they're actually creating these tunnels even under civilian locations, under hospitals, under schools, which makes it even more dangerous. But even someone like myself who comes from the special operations community, it isn't the real answer just to send in, small elite troops. The real answer to stopping operations in these tunnels from occurring is to flood them. They should be horizontally drilling into the tunnels from the Mediterranean Sea, from the surface of the Gaza border. They need to flood these so that the water makes it so they can't operate inside them. It's very bold, but that's the answer. And in lieu of that, we need to help the Israelis do what we can with intelligence and surveillance from the air, whether that be drones or other means to help root out the terrorist groups that are operating from these tunnels. That bit of information that you just gave us sounds exactly why they would take our people and other countries' people as hostages and put them in those tunnels. They know you can drill on those horizontal walls and flood the tunnels. They know that would be operationally what they would probably do. But that's really helpful, Brett. So, this is the most difficult part of this. The number has gone all the way up to 300. You can't trust terrorists to tell you how many hostages they have. How is it that they can do these, kind of short-lived ground raids and get reconnaissance? Like, who would they be talking to at that point? The IDF. Well, they're talking to their intelligence, assets that are above ground. That includes, more than likely Western aerial assets that are flying over there. And we should do as much as we can from the air to provide the Israelis with this intelligence information, especially now that Hamas is holding American hostages. And I think this time when the Israelis commit forces into Gaza, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to be in waves from ground, sea, and air. Israel isn't just going to go in there with all their forces at once. It's going to be in phases to play it out on the ground. They're going to go block by block. It's going to be very methodical and precise to root out Hamas once and for all. I'm sitting here in Tel Aviv, Israel, and there's a very tense feeling in the air. Everyone's in this state of constant readiness. Reserves have been called up. A lot of people in the streets and cafe are armed. You're feeling that there's going to be this long, protracted ground invasion and battle that's going to last months. And until you're here, you truly don't understand why it's so necessary for the Israelis to expunge the evil that is Hamas once and for all. And there is going to be collateral damage, unfortunately, because Hamas uses civilians in civilian locations like hospitals and schools as shields. And, Israel, they're invading because of what occurred on October 7th. They're not against Palestinians. They're against Hamas. The Israelis have been living in this constant state of terror, daily. It's very a difficult environment. Just within the last 48 hours, we were under a number of rocket attacks near my location, right. And you can see what's just a normal day erupt into fear and violence. And so no one should have to live like this. Israelis shouldn't have to live like this, under constant fear of terrorism, under constant fear of threat. And we need to do what we can to help them root that threat once and for all so it doesn't happen to us. Yeah, I think about what we would do if this were happening along one of our borders. Oh, wait, we didn't secure the one in the south. Let's pray together about that situation. Brett Velikovich, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Harris, good morning. We do have breaking news for you as we speak. Sirens are sounding in central Israel. I want to just step out of the frame here and have my cameraman zoom into the skyline. If you look right above where the sun is setting, you can see two black lines of smoke. That's where those rockets just moments ago came off the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Despite the thousands of Israeli airstrikes that have targeted Gaza over the past several days, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, 24 days into this conflict, have maintained their ability to fire on major population centers across Israel. I do want to show you what it was like earlier today here along the Gaza border as Israeli forces were operating inside the Strip behind us. You can see here the Israelis marking targets on the northeastern side of the Gaza Strip. In the distance, you can hear the thud of artillery. This is a very active front. And as the Israelis push deeper into Gaza, They anticipate there will be more resistance, and it's part of the reason they continue strikes against different positions. The Israelis are currently engaging Hamas militants in the northern part of the Strip. We understand that 20 Hamas members were killed in a single Israeli strike yesterday, with Israeli ground troops on the eastern and western side of Gaza. Daniel Hagari, a spokesman for the Israeli military, spoke earlier today about the situation and the plans for his troops.
Over the past day, we have expanded ground activities with additional forces entering the Gaza Strip, including infantry, armored corps, combat engineering, and artillery corps. Through integrated strikes of the ground forces and the IAF, dozens of terrorists were eliminated last night who had barricaded themselves in buildings and attempted to attack the forces that were moving in their direction. I want to explain and provide an example. We are conducting expanded ground operations in the Gaza Strip.
The humanitarian situation inside Gaza continues to deteriorate. The Israelis are striking from both the air and the ground. We've heard the artillery units active today along the border. And the aftermath in this video here of neighborhoods in Gaza completely leveled. Remember, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are fighting from these neighborhoods and starting to battle with those Israeli forces along the Strip. But those desperate Palestinians, more than 2 million of them who live life under Hamas control, are running low on food and supplies. This weekend, they raided a UN warehouse inside Gaza, trying to take whatever aid they could find. Harris.
Trey, before I let you go, I had reported earlier that Egypt has sent the largest group of trucks carrying aid that we've seen so far since the war began, and on October 7th. And I'm just wondering, is that enough? Have you seen that be enough for people to come from the north, Palestinian families, and all those people who will be trapped up there with war going on if they don't start to move south? Is that enough to get people on the move again? Are you seeing that?
It's certainly not enough. Yesterday, 24 aid trucks entered through Egypt's Rafah crossing in the southern part of the Strip, and they went directly to the Palestinian Red Crescent. Thousands of Palestinians have heeded the warnings from the Israelis to head south, but they are quickly running out of food and water. We are hearing horrific stories, not just from Palestinian civilians there, but also aid workers who are trapped inside the Strip.
So why don't they go south?
On supplies.
You just said 24 trucks had gone in with aid. Why don't these people move?
They have moved, and they are in the south. Many of them are there.
And they're running out of food and
water.
water there.
There's simply not enough aid going in. Yes.
So, Trey, you say thousands of people, but there are hundreds of thousands of people.
Each and every day, the Israelis are warning civilians who have stayed in the northern part of Gaza to move south. But remember, with a population of more than 2 million people, they don't have anywhere to go. And we've shown you the videos around the city of Khan Yunis, the second largest city inside Gaza. Palestinians are staying in tent cities that are being built there. But in terms of the aid, the food and the supplies, there is nothing other than these few aid trucks that have entered going into Gaza. And so people are eating and drinking what they have. The water is being turned on in certain parts of the Strip, but we are getting reports from Palestinians in Gaza that the water is not clean to drink. And so a humanitarian situation is developing, and it's part of the reason that you have the United States, for example, trying to push to get as much aid into the Strip as possible to ensure that that doesn't become a whole nother parallel story in this tragedy that unfolded here in the south of Israel on October 7th, leading to the war that we're seeing today.
Yeah, it's just unreal. Where are Saudi Arabia, Iran? We know that the Crown Prince and the president of Iran talked early on in the conflict for 45 minutes. Talked about supporting the Palestinians. They don't want to support them with aid. Where's Jordan? Where's Qatar? Where are these countries to help their Arab neighbors, the Palestinians, that they want to fight us and Israel about, but they won't help their own people?
It's a great question. And so far, the Egyptians have been really resistant to provide aid to the Palestinians in Gaza and to ensure that that crossing is open. And you've seen the United Nations, the officials, Antonio Guterres, going to the border and calling for it to open, not only to let that aid in, but also to let foreign citizens out. Remember, there are hundreds of American citizens, many of them dual nationals, that are trapped inside Gaza. I've been texting with a woman who the State Department told her to go to the Rafah crossing multiple times. She went with her young son. She lives in Utah. And she's gone to the crossing. They've not let her go into Egypt. And she's terrified. She told me yesterday she has tried so many times that she is giving up. And when I text her to see if she is still okay, her response is, I am alive.
Oh, God bless her. What is the White House? What's the State Department telling her?
This is a huge part of the story that we are trying to report each and every day, but is not really being covered across the board. The American citizens who are currently trapped inside Gaza. The State Department is really dropping the ball here. And we should be very clear about this part of the story. There are many moving parts to this conflict, but it's not just people who were in Gaza visiting their families who have American passports in hand and simply can't get home to the United States. It's also aid workers who were inside Gaza, American citizens that I've talked to over the past 24 hours who have told me they are running low on food and supplies. And if I could, I know we're tight on time here, but I want to just read you a text message that I received yesterday from a source who is dealing with this situation. And he describes what's happening. He says their water is turned off. When it was on, it was dirty anyways. Viruses and typical diseases that happen from stagnant water starting to set in. A lot of people vomiting. They're low on medicine, and they are treating burns with iodine. They are running out of supplies. We're talking about American citizens, aid workers who are inside Gaza, who are describing these difficult and horrific conditions, and they can't get home.